So today is Thursday, 29th of August 2024. It's just about 5 minutes after 3 p.m. It's around 77 degrees. Not so hot, at least not so cold. I should say more on the pleasant side as compared to yesterday when we were around 94, 95 degrees. There were even heat advisories about staying hydrated and making certain that you're in an air-conditioned room, etc., etc. I am glad to see the back of the month of August. My favorite months are September, October. Those are my favorite months. We also have election campaigning going on between the Democrats and Republicans. Both parties trying to build up their supporters, send them into frenzy. The countdown has long begun for the elections in November, and both parties are trying to put the stops in terms of their outreach to woo voters over to their side. The presidential debate will be this time around will be between Harris and Trump. That's going to be on the 12th of September in Philadelphia. It's going to be aired on ABC, moderated by Lindsay Davis and David Moore. That should be very interesting to see. But my purpose is not to talk about the U.S. elections campaign. Maybe I'll probably do a separate video about that sometime. My focus is on Guyana. So over the years, we have been told by educators like Dr. David Hindes, GCOM Chairman Vincent Alexander, who was a former registrar at UG, and others, that the PPP is marginalizing Afro Guyanese. So I was watching this program last Monday night. The Pan-Africanist Gerald Perreira, I think he also has a small, he's the head of a small organization, I believe. He was sitting among two other panelists, a former bigwig of the AFC, Leonard Craig, who's now writing for the Chronicle, and Dr. Mark France, who is executive of ANOC, the small party. That program was moderated by Frederick Casson. One of the main topics of that program was our Afro Guyanese being marginalized by the PPP. So I was surprised, and maybe at the end of this video, you can give comments. Maybe those who have more knowledge to expand on what I'm about to say. The Pan-Africanist Gerald Perreira was saying that marginalization of Afro-Guyanese started under the late former president Desmond Hoyte. Yes, you heard it. That's what he said last Monday night. And it's not me saying it. In fact, I'm going to be playing a video of him saying it so you can hear for yourselves. And he gave a couple of examples, starting with the privatization of those government corporations. He says that when Hoyte started that kind of privatization, workers that were sent home, the majority of workers sent home were Afro-Guyanese. Leonard Craig had a different view. He said that he believed that the marginalization of Afro-Guyanese started under the neoliberal system. So we have a contrasting tale of two, along with Dr. David Hindes and the likes of Vincent Alexander. There's one error, I believe, that was made by Gerald when he was talking about Gyana Timers being bought by Lord Riverbook and flipped. I'm going to talk about that in detail. In fact, it wasn't Gyana Timers, it was Denrari Timers. Correction on his part. It was Denrari Timers that was bought by Lord Riverbook from England. 2 months after, he flipped that purchase, and it was bought by another company. That was most disgraceful. Now, I am a former employee of Gyana Timers Limited. I worked there for about a year and almost 6 months. So I was right there when the company was closed. In fact, they sent us home. They said that they told us that the company was in bankruptcy. And if I could remember, I think we had about 2 or 3 retrenchments. If it's 2 or 3, whichever it was, I can't recall, but I was in the last batch. So if it was 2 retrenchments, I would have been in the last batch to be sent home. And the company was shut down. And then later on, we heard that it was to be bought by another company. I could remember 1985, the sawmill, whatever work the sawmill was projected to do that day, whatever wood they were supposed to cut, everything came to halt when they got an order to cut wood for President Bonham's casket. Yes, I was right there on the middle floor looking down at what was going on. And the order came to stop our production and to make certain that whatever was the order to cut the wood in terms of making the casket of President Bonham, that was fulfilled. I was right there. I could remember some of the names. Maybe some of the old timers, if they're still alive. Most of these names are dead that I'm calling here. Chairman of Gyana Timers, Guy Perry. Managing Director, Mr. Lunk. Production Manager, Mr. Bethune. Sawmill Manager, I should say Mill Manager, Cecil Anderson. Deputy Mill Manager, Mr. Waldron. Security Manager, Mr. Nelson. I work as a statistical clerk. We are responsible for getting production figures and presenting daily reports to the different managers as well as the chairman. And I worked under statistician, Ms. Hindes. There was a massive board facing the sawmill, and one of my tasks was to make certain every day I would write in chalk their production figures for the day before so the workers could actually see for the week their production figures. And that was one of my tasks. But, to think of it now, yeah, we had a majority of Afro Guyanese working there. Yes, we also had a small amount of East Indians working there. But it is now coming back to me, especially what Gerald was saying. Now, there was a canteen at the Gyana Timers Limited. And that canteen would have breakfast for sale, lunch, and afternoon snacks, especially for workers who were working up to 10 or 11. I think we work up to, I think it was up to 10 p.m. or 11 p.m. Yes, I worked late for a couple of times. And I could remember passing the conks. And there was an exclamation somebody when they were given their pay slip. It was like, in some cases, less than $100. And what I found out is that a lot of the workers were actually what we call trusting or getting credit from the canteen. So imagine you're getting credit from the canteen 3 times a day, right? And then there was also the club, which is next door. You also go to the club and you trust. So all that money is deducted from your salary, and you end up with a small amount of money because of these different credit that you're taking. Even though I was a bachelor, I would walk with something to eat every day because I realized that trying to buy stuff for the canteen and so you're just kind of wasting money when you could save some money. So even though I was a bachelor, I would make certain that I walk with something to eat, but it's not coming back to me. So imagine you have most of the workers not wanting to bring something to eat, food to eat, like myself, trusting 3 times a day, plus you go over to the bar or whatever, and now all of a sudden the company is shut down and you're sent home. What effects do you think it would have had on those workers? That's not coming back to me, what Gerald was saying. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to play the video of Gerald making his opening remarks. Enjoy.
You were talking about people, about lack of opportunities and who don't have opportunities and all that. But what these people who are talking about apartheid don't mention is that capitalism, the capitalist system, and that's like the elephant in the room that nobody wants to address. The capitalist system is inherently racist. And today you have all these scholars talking about racialized capitalism. That is why Malcolm X said that you cannot, once you have capitalism, you will have racism. Eric Williams showed that in Capitalism and Slavery. Walter Rodney, the same in How Europe Underdeveloped Africa. Now, on the issue of marginalization, when some people speak about marginalization in Guyana, they look at it purely from the racial or ethnic perspective, but what from the social and economic perspective? If we are going to talk about marginalization, let's say when it began. When, after the death of Mr. Burnham, Mr. Hoyte came into office and started to privatize and denationalize. Good? He implemented a program called the Structural Adjustment Program, or the ERP, Economic Recovery Program, which the WPA then referred to as empty rice pot. Good? They started to privatize state assets and sell out, and the IMF and World Bank told them to downsize the army. So when you downsize the army,
and the public service.
And the public service, correct. Yeah, when you downsize the army and the public service, which ethnic group in the majority is going home? Africans. When you privatize and sell out Gyana Timers, Sonata Textile, who had the money to buy it? Who had the money to buy it? Let's address that. I know that when they privatized, when they were selling Gyana Timers, it was sold for song. It was sold for song to Lord Beaverbrook.
And he sold it for...
And the ink didn't dry properly. And he sold it for a lot of money. Some of the players in that corrupt transaction are now deceased. 1 and 2 are alive. So you don't want to call their names. And those people have no moral or historical right to tell anybody about what constitutes what is marginalization. The marginalization started, economic marginalization started under Mr. Hoyte. But people didn't pay attention to that. But when supposedly an Indian government came into power now, you apply the racial or the ethnic aspect to it. But this is it. Irrespective of which party is in power, because of the system, because of the neo-colonial arrangement, because we don't shape the economic policies of this program and it's directed from outside, you will have marginalization. From the economic aspect, poor Indians will be marginalized. because that's what the system does. Capitalism marginalizes, and Africans will be marginalized. It is easy to play the ethnic card or to reduce everything to the ethnic issue and ignore the class issue. No.
Okay. We come.
So before I bring in Leonard Craig, and remember, Gerald Perreira is saying that Afro-Guyanese marginalization started under Desmond Hoyte. That's the late former president, Desmond Hoyte. Leonard Craig is saying that Afro-Guyanese marginalization started under the according to what he's saying, the neo-colonial system. I'll be playing Leonard Craig in just a moment. I decided to go on Google. I did some research. I'm just going to bring you the top 5. This privatization deal under Desmond Hoyte. These are the top 5 I'm going to be bringing to you here. And remember, Gerald made a mistake when he was quoting the Englishman Lord Beaverbrook buying Gyana Timers. It was not Gyana Timers, it was Denrah Woods. And right now I'm going to start with number 1, Denrah Woods Limited. There were indeed some controversial privatization deeds which took place. The one that received the most publicity was the sale of Denrah Woods Limited to Lord Beaverbrook, who was the former treasurer of the British Conservative Party. He bought the entity in February 1991 for £9.7 million. He also negotiated and obtained a 50-year lease for 1.2 million acres of rainforest. Just 2 months later, in April 1991, he sold his interest to United Dutch Company for £61 million worth of equity in that firm. The new complex was renamed Demerara Timbers Limited. Even though Beaverbrook had up to mid-1992 not finished paying the Guyana government for Demerara Woods, he merged the enterprise into the giant United Dutch Company, which took control of Demerara Timbers, of which he remained a major shareholder. By 1992, United Dutch valued Demerara Timbers at £74 million. The rainforest concession alone was estimated at between 160 million to 206 million United States dollars. Number 2 on the list, Gyana Timers Limited, where I worked for a year and a half approximately. The book value of the firm was slated at 130 million United States dollars, but it was sold for only $23.2 million. You heard it, $23.2 million United States dollars in 1991. Registration fees for its Houston operations amounting to $178,590 were waived, as were the duty of $892,900 for the property transfer and fees of $555,810 for the firm's Vancouver operations, a total sum of $1.6 million. All were waived. The new firm, Caribbean Resources Limited, continued operations under its new owner, Caribbean Life Insurance Company. Some of you know it as CLICO. Yes, CLICO of the state of Trinidad and Tobago. And I think just a couple of days ago, I heard Lawrence Dupree, the owner of CLICO, died. Next, number 3, National Paint Company. This efficient profit-making entity was sold in May 1991 to Stephen Giddens, an overseas-based Guyanese, for 1.50 million United States dollars. Giddens lodged 200,000 United States dollars as a down payment and was given until 1993 to pay the rest at 6% interest, at a time when the market rate for interest on industrial loans and credit ranged from between 35 to 40%. Workers at the company had actually made a bid for the entity since 1989. They bid on May the 10th, 1989, was 1 million United States dollars. But after some hesitancy on the part of the government, they increased the offer to 1.2 million US dollars. This sum was equivalent to 150.2 million Guyana dollars in 1991, as compared to Guinea's offer, which was equivalent to 142.6 million Guyana dollars. Naturally, the workers were very peeved over this sale, since the offer involved a down payment of 404,000 United States dollars at the signing of the agreement, and 808,000 United States dollars in two equal annual installments. Interestingly, another bidder was a CARICOM paint company, McArney Alston's group, which offered 1.5 million United States dollar, with the group owing 51% of the equity, the government 24%, and the workers 25%. It should be noted that the down payment of 200,000 United States dollars by Giddens was less than the net value of the stock, outstanding debts owed to the company, and other prepayments minus payments to creditors, which meant that the government of Guyana, in real terms, actually financed the purchase of the company by the new owner. Next, number 4, GRMMA complexes at Blackbush, Polo, and Corriverton was sold off in August 1991 to the Foreign Farm Curacao Investment Trust Company for 3.8 million United States dollars. But these companies were valued at 14.9 million United States dollars. The same firm had earlier bought other GRMA complexes at Rumsey and Wickenham for 2.5 million United States dollars. The value of both complexes, complete with installation and fertile lands, was 8.5 million United States dollars. And in Regina, the GRMMA complex, valued at 14.2 million, was sold to a St. Vincent firm for $4.2 million and is renamed CARICOM Rice Mills. The sale of these complexes raised much concern among local investors. The problem was not only the sale but the price, but also the fact that the local investors who made high bids for the entities were ignored. I wonder why the local bidders were ignored. No reason was given for the rejection of their higher bids. And we go to last but not least, number 5, Guyana Telecommunications Corporation, GTC, which was a profit-making business and net foreign exchange earner, was sold off in late 1990 to ATN, or Atlantic Tele Network, based in the United States Virgin Islands, for 16.5 million United States dollars. The GTC was at the time suffering from bad management, but at the time of sale it had some 400 million Guyana dollars in the bank, and outstanding sums due and payable to it, and was earning a net figure of about 2 to 4 million United States dollars annually. Based on the sales agreement, ATN acquired 80% of the enterprise, with the government retaining the remaining 20%. There was much local criticism of the government for disposing of the company for such a low price. Even the PPP expressed a view that at least 20% of the entity should have been offered to the Guyanese private sector. The new privatized entity under the name GT&T began operations in January 1991. I will now play the video clip of Leonard Craig.
Gerald mentioned something with respect to neocolonialization. There is where I believe that marginalization started. If you go back in history, you would see that, for example, Africans tried to lift themselves economically. They pooled their money, they bought villages, and many times they tried to do farming, for example. And the colonial masters did flood their farms.
Correct.
All right? And the markets, the place to sell as a market, was then given to East Indian vendors, and African vendors had to put baskets on their head and walk through the villages and try to sell their produce. They were not given stalls at the markets. So Africans did try, and Africans were marginalized. And what I'm saying is that many Africans of today inherit that original marginalization. And that is why, based on the point he made a moment ago, that when Hoyte attempted to sell the ethnic group that was ready to purchase
Correct.
would have had to be East Indians.
That's right.
Because they were part of participating in the economy more readily than Africans were. And because Africans couldn't live off the land, they moved to the cities and tried to get public service jobs. And that is the evolution of our history that places Africans on the periphery of the economic power of the country. And that has to be acknowledged as a historical marginalization that brought Africans to the periphery. And I believe that as a country, we got to be conscious about that, accept that that is a fact, and integrate Africans more and more into the economy. It is happening, but it is not happening as fast as the African people would like to see it happen. Also, the getting out of a marginalized state, which also includes in the mind, it's a long and hard process. And Africans themselves have to learn certain skills about climbing out of the situation. For example, in the opposition, I often write about that in my column in the Chronicle. In the opposition, they cry every day, Africans are marginalized, being racially subjugated and all these kinds of things. And Africans see that and they say, yeah, boy, these people got to know what they're saying. So an opportunity is there and they don't go because they believe that this opportunity is made for everybody else except me. And so that mentality also has to change. And Africans need to understand that, you know, the economy is open. If whether it's in community or in families, we have to position ourselves to take advantage. And unless we get to that place, it is then easy. Because remember, shouting marginalization is easy when the dominant race of people who hold power is of a different race. Shouting marginalization becomes easy. It becomes a thing to go to. And it feels good and it sounds good when people say that, because it's a good excuse. Why you aren't trying to, you know, get yourself together and so on? Well, you don't see what they're doing. You don't see what they're doing, black people, man. You know, that kind of mentality. So there needs to be education along with attempts to better or bring Africans more from the periphery into the center of the economic activities of Guyana.
Dr.